Okay, let me close that.
Okay, are we ready, Heather?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. Today is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. It's 9:34 a.m. We'll start with introductions. I'm Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission. Why don't we do the commissioners and then we'll follow with the guests.
I'm sorry, I'm Rick, Commissioner.
Kelly James, Commissioner.
Rachel Bucci, Commissioner.
Michael Hernandez, Commissioner.
And I'm Heather Dimke with Public Works.
And then what about our other guests? Can you just introduce yourselves?
Mary Lou Zeek, Oregon Artist Series Foundation.
Kate Van Emerson, Salem Public Library Foundation.
Susan Napak, I'm an artist and I'm on the board of the Grant Neighborhood Association.
Amador Aguilar from LACE Cross Cultural Community Development Project.
Welcome, everyone. We've got a lot going on this morning. First on the agenda is public comment. And Amador, I'm going to invite you to tell us a little bit about Enlace and your interest in talking with us this morning. I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes so that we'll have time for any questions from folks on the Zoom afterwards, and then we'll move on. Welcome. Thank you for your interest in being here.
Okay, thank you so much. So I was invited to be here to learn more about your group. And I'm running a project that is called Enlace Cross Cultural Community Development Project. Before it was a Latino Academy of Education, Art and Culture. So the purpose is to create an academy to promote art and culture, the Latino art and culture in this community and the communities that are around Salem. One of the challenges that I saw is that there are a lot of interest from community members to learn about the Latino culture, but mostly we are working in the area with many low-income families. So the big challenge is how to promote art and culture or create an academy when the level of the economy for the most of the people, it was hard. So it's for that reason I turned the name from Proyecto de Educación Arte y Cultura Latina to Enlace. So Enlace means connections. Enlace means a collaboration. So I'm trying to sign from since 2005 when I created Enlace. But we have a record from the 2000 that we started many different projects, art and culture projects. We create Enlace because many of the community knocked the door from Enlace to find the way to get resources to promote the art and culture. So from individuals, mostly for the Latino, the Latino community. So they want to learn about music, the traditional music. They want to learn about the dance, folkloric dance. They want to learn. They have a lot of interest to get in one of this program. So due to the financial situation from families, we create Enlace to work with organizations, churches, schools, and leaders to educate them to find a way to create the spaces and resources and more opportunities for these families. So that's why we create Enlace Cross-Cultural Development Project. Cross-cultural because we want to interact with different groups, with different people, leaders, in order to find solutions to many of the challenges to promote art and culture in this area. So especially to promote the Latino culture, and I'm gonna explain a little bit how this area impact into our families, especially after COVID. So that was the reason what we create Enlace, because it's not easy to have academy or to have an academy as a just business we need to create something to start to learn about each other and see how we can create something strong to support our communities. Even schools, when we have groups for performance, many of the schools, they knock the door, the enlace door, to ask for support to bring performances into the schools. But the schools say, we have, also the schools and organizations say, we don't have money to pay. So how we can get to here, and we tell them, you know what, we don't have, we suppose we are business. So we really want to promote art and culture in different spaces and places. So let's work together. It's for that reason we turned the Latino Academy concept into the Enlace cross-cultural concept in order to sit down, talk about the challenges, talk about the opportunities, the resources that you can have and I can have, and we can work together to open these spaces. So that is the process that from science, I think we create, the first project that we create is called Rondalla Sentimiento Latino. So that means a guitar ensemble, a traditional guitar ensemble, that we were one of the first performers in the World Beat Festival.
Oh,
We started with that. We have a video, we have the TV, the community TV were there. So we have the history from I think it's like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when this started. So now the challenge is how everything is going to improve to connect and with the minority groups to promote art and culture. So 20 years after. So 20 years after, we still have this project that is called Rondalla Sentimiento Latino, even that we don't have the nonprofit status in which you can get grants to support your program. So we are keeping this surviving with the limitations, but the project is still 20 years after, when we saw that there are many projects in which disappear 5 years, 8 years, and our project is still with the concept de Rondalla Sentimiento Latino. So the next event for this year, for the first time, we're gonna be in the Kaiser Festival Light Parade. So we're gonna be this Saturday. But the challenge is we don't have the resources to get everything together to be there. So we work in collaboration with businesses, collaboration with organization leaders, and they help us to get what we need to be part of a general system. So this is we're gonna promote the Posadas tradition in this parade. So we're gonna play music from the Posadas, so the Latino Christmas celebration. So we want to promote that in this event, and also we are creating our own spaces with many limitations. For example, the flea market concept. We are trying to create a space inside to bring the low-income families, bring the art, the talent in these spaces. So we are using the small spaces with all the limitations. So we are knocking the door for different groups, different leaders, different organizations to work together and see how we can get more support to continue this project that we have started like 20 years ago.
let me thank you for that summary. So just a couple of reactions, and then we'll open it up for some conversation with the full group. It may be that you will want to consider forming a small nonprofit, because I think your mission is very inclusive, and I think funders would be interested in assisting you. So that's something that you might consider. I know it is very hard in these days of the COVID restrictions to bring outside performers or presenters into the public schools. I know my own neighborhood association used to meet at South Salem High School, and we're not allowed to do that right now. So I can appreciate your frustration in trying to infiltrate in what is probably our most accessible, usually accessible way to connect with children and families of all backgrounds. It's exciting that you're going to be involved in the Kaiser parade. I'm so sorry that that parade left Salem and moved to Kaiser, because I loved it when my kids were little. Just in terms of networking within the community, I think the World Beat Festival would be an important group for you to develop a relationship with, because they are, in my opinion, the hub of multicultural activity and the exchange of information within the cultural realm. And I don't think that there is another one, unless Salem Art Association could be a possibility. They're more visual arts oriented, but they are very interested in better connecting with the different cultural groups across the city. Have you been in touch with them?
With the who? Excuse me? With who?
With the Salem Art Association?
No.
Okay,
No.
well, we can do an introduction for you with them.
Yeah, we're gonna be part of the board. We're gonna be board members of I think it's kind of a new project, like the Forest Festival, in which I think I don't know in which neighborhood is.
Inglewood.
Inglewood, yeah.
Yes,
So we are planning to be part of the board and bring this open this opportunity for minority groups to be part of different projects.
yeah, I think that's a great avenue for you. What about comments from others?
I would just second, Chris, what you said about considering formation of a nonprofit associated with NLUS, because it will be easier to raise money from foundations and possibly, individuals as well who may feel, if they are not associated with the business, to be able to make donations. So I would look into that if that's something that you would like to do. And then also SAA, Salem Art Association, I know that they are working a lot with, remind me of the name,
Siempre?
Yes, Los Siempre Unidos,
Yes.
LUS, the youth group who is very active in the within the schools as well. So they've been doing a lot of work together, and I know Kathy Dingus and Matthew Boulay at the Art Association are really eager to work with the Latino community and especially young people. So it seems like there would be a lot of overlap between what you're doing, and they are also, they work in the schools as well. So, and there's another group that I'm thinking of, but I cannot remember the name of it. I can ask Jonathan, my husband, he's worked with them in the past, and you might know them, but I cannot remember the name of the group right off the top of my head, but I'm happy to email it to Heather and she can share it with you after the meeting.
Yes.
I was going to mention that the Oregon Artist Series Foundation, I believe, and I see what Chris thinks, would like to talk with you to just hear about your many artists that you may have, and to see if there's an opportunity in our level 2 gallery at maybe talking to some of those artists to see about a group, part of a group show or a single show, or what we can help with.
Thank you.
And one other thing that we'll be talking about later on in this meeting is that 2022 is the 50-year anniversary of the building of the Civic Center complex. And we know the city is looking to do something to celebrate that anniversary. We've suggested that maybe a series of outdoor free performances on that City Hall block could be a free, very open and inclusive way to energize some of those public spaces. So I would think that the city would look to all kinds of local cultural groups for dance, music, theater, what have you. I want to welcome Zach Hull, who joined us. Thanks for being here. Other comments? Kelly, you had your hand up.
Yeah, but Rachel said most everything I was going to say, only better. So
I don't know
I would
about
just,
that.
I just want to give you encouragement because I think that what you're trying to do is long overdue. I know there's some other groups that are trying to do it. And like it's been said already, the 501 or the nonprofit status, I think would really help you guys a lot. So, and I just encourage you to keep it up and to, make an effort to be in all these, that any kind of local performances that you can be, because, we have a very diverse community and it's time that, that was represented. So keep at it.
I have a question, maybe Spencer or Michael or Heather knows the answer to this. What's the status of the city's plans to program performances in the Rotary Amphitheater? Who's on top for that work? Is it the Rotary or is it the city? Does anyone know?
My knowledge is that we had posted for a term position that would help manage the amphitheater. And that's as far as we've gotten. I think they're in process of hiring that individual now, but I've not heard any more or any further steps.
Because it seems like, the intent of that space is also to be an inclusive, diverse, a gathering place for multiple kinds of events. I don't know what I don't know if the city expects to make rental revenue from that and to what degree, and that you can also drive how choices are made.
One other thing I would like to add, you mentioned that when you've gone to the schools in the past, that they have been hesitant to pay your performers, which is sad. I would mention that the Salem Art Association, they maintain a list of artists and performers who work in the school, and I would encourage you to cooperate with them in order to be on that list, so that, and then what they do is they help connect you with a school and they negotiate the fee that you would be paid. So that might help you in terms of, when schools are able to have performers back in person, to ensure that when you do go into the schools that you're paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the greatest thing that we have right now are the opportunity that we open it. So we are working with the 3 different projects right now. So one is with the Farm Worker Development Corporation, that is FHDC. So we are working with farm worker families, young people after COVID. They are working so hard to partner with me to find resources, and they find the resources and they provide all the needs that we need. So we collaborate and we created a great program, kind of after school program, but art and culture program, in which we have a special program that we are connecting communities, that is Independence, Salem, and Jarvis and Whitburn. So this music project is called Los Colores de América Latino Orchestra. So this is the project that I would like to place in the nonprofit side, because
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is very interesting how the kids are learning about the music, tradition, and culture through music. And especially right now that they need a space after COVID closing time, they have the opportunity to express themselves through music and dance. So that is the name of the project, that is Los Colores de América. And we are promoting this. So everything that you are, proposing, everything that you are telling me is helping us to connect with people that we don't know, and explore the way how we can work it doesn't matter the identity if it's nonprofit or business, but we can do always something.
Mhm.
Okay, I think that you've just kind of summarized what the next steps are. So we can continue, we can either meet in person or we can continue to communicate by email and do some introductions. It just happens that the woman who works for the Salem Art Association lives in Independence and is connected to another local nonprofit that is very closely connected to the elementary school. So we're going to have to wrap up the discussion with you this morning. But I think we've got plenty of good ideas for connecting, and we look forward to continuing our conversations with you, Amador.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
to
welcome.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And feel free to stay here with the meeting. Okay,
Okay.
I am going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda for today and the minutes from our November meeting. Do I hear?
Sorry, Chris, one quick note too, we might have an addition to the agenda today. We already have the Eco Earth as a discussion update for today. We met with Kimberly Fitzgerald, the Historic Preservation Manager, yesterday. If folks are inclined, we might want to act today on SPAC contributing a letter of support for a local nomination. So we can discuss that. That might be an addition that we'd want to place today.
Great, and I support that addition to the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we support the consent agenda and the addition and the minutes as well.
Is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. It's all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. First on our list of discussion items is comments from Mary Lou and from Kate on plans for the library art hall. So welcome. And I was part of a meeting with Oregon Artist Series Foundation earlier this week. Things seem to be moving along, but Kate and Mary Lou, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm thinking that most of you know about OASF. Is that correct? Hopefully. I can tell you we're a committed group of businesses and business community leaders and artists and others who believe in public art and how it enriches our community. And it creates an environment that is good for residents, visitors, and business. We are continuously seeking to engage and partner with others who can help and advance our work. We work in concert with the City of Salem Public Art Commission and the Riverfront Downtown Urban Renewal District to make art an integral part of our downtown Salem. Our close partnership with the Salem Convention Center has placed multiple works of art by Northwest artists inside that building. And we sought and secured sponsorships to create the outdoor sculpture garden at the center. How we operate is we use a nonprofit status to seek grants and major gifts to acquire public art. We also successfully brokered the gift of major works of art that we've gifted then to the City of Salem. Our annual fundraising event, which is now Flip for Art, thanks to Michael, it generates both public excitement and funds for more artwork. We've developed strategic partnerships with the Halliford Museum of Art for a loan of major paintings for the Salem Convention Center. And now we are beginning to showcase our level 2 gallery that we are hoping to open in January. And it will showcase artists from the Salem community. And it will run 3 shows a year that will run for 4 months. We've just recently discussed with Kate and the Salem Library about extending our shows that would go into the hall of the library, one of the hallways. And we're still in discussion about how the type of show that we want to have continued there. We are hoping it would be continued with our level 2 gallery artists. It may be something that could involve their processes, possibly a continuation of their actual artwork. We're in the discussion of that now. We have a little bit of time because of Salem Reads is in that space in February. Our show won't open until January at level 2, so we are taking that time to wait until March to open the show that would be in the library. Kate, do you have anything to say?
I would just add to that I love the idea of collaborating with the Artist Series Foundation, and that one of the challenges at the library, both for the foundation and for library staff, is that we just don't have staff capacity or time to curate and manage our own shows. And so this is a really beautiful partnership that I think could last for a long time, where a show that hangs at the convention center would then come to this art hall that we've created in the renovated library, and that it would be professionally curated and hung, and it would reach a completely different part of the population than the convention center does. But so all of the work and effort that goes into one of those shows would be able to be utilized in 2 really different spaces. And so I'm really looking forward to the potential of having those convention shows rotate through the library over the course of the year.
And the first show that will go up at the level 2 gallery is, Mary Lou?
Is Kristen Coons. She's a Salem artist, and she's prepared. We were hoping to debut our shows back in September, but we have prepared the walls with panels. We have brought in professional lighting, and that kind of took us back a little bit because of the lighting could not be installed until this month. But Kristen's very excited. Our next 2 shows, I can't say what they are, but we have people that we will be speaking with, we hope within this next week. And we will get those on board and discuss those with Kate again. The next show we would hope would start in June and run through October. Then the following show would be October, I think it runs through September. The next show would be October through January, again with allowing that month for Salem Reads for the Salem Library to install their show, and then beginning again for the 4 months. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's exciting. We were in great conversation on Monday evening, and we are all, as OAS board, we are very excited about this collaboration with the Salem Public Library.
I think I think it is a really good step for the library to take. I know that there have been various efforts over the years, some modest and some pretty grassroots, and it just seems like this is taking that level of activity to another level, which I think is Salem certainly deserves. What about comments from other SPAC members? Any questions for Mary Lou and Kate? Rachel?
Oh, sure. I have a question and comment. Can you tell us a little bit about the selection process, how artists would be identified for inclusion? I know that, one thing that I think we need to be really cognizant of is transparency and how artists are selected, and inclusiveness to reflect the diversity of our community. And as OASF is a separate nonprofit with a board, and it's not really clear to me how that process would happen. Can you talk more about that?
Well, as we are now, we just sat around the table and threw out names of different artists that we really felt would work well in that space. We need to be careful about the type of work that we hang, behind glass, secure, all that type of thing. We talked a lot about diversity and how we can go about doing that because we feel that that's very important in our mission of what we want to do. So as it is now, we are just discussing different names. It could be bringing some other people into our discussion to see what names they can throw in. And if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've talked about this before the library opened, and it was a topic of conversation at many of our meetings about putting together a group that would include maybe, someone from the SPAC, someone from the Public Library Foundation, possibly SAA, other groups in the community like NLAS or other Latino entities. There are lots of other groups within the community that are doing art. There's something called Artist Row, which is another younger people, just a really diverse group of individuals to program the space. So from my standpoint, I think I do have some reservations about one organization taking on the management and programming of the space, and without a consideration for just a more collaborative approach, I guess.
And I totally hear you on that, Rachel. I do understand that. Where we were coming from is we are also a group of non-paid members. We're all a foundation that donate our time. And we were looking at it as one continuing show from the level 2 gallery space. And so that our show at the library is just an expansion of what we have at level 2, with that. So it would make it easier than having 2 separate shows. That did come into discussion. Should we have 2 separate shows? But I don't know if we have the manpower of people on our board, because we're doing lots of other things to do that. But I totally hear you on that.
Yeah, and that's where I guess I would love to see the city or the library or the foundation or OASF, kind of put some resources behind this, because to do it in a way that's inclusive and purposeful and very, to invest that amount of energy into something, it does take resources and it does take time and energy. But I think the ultimate payoff is, it's worth it. We should be doing that, and to just take, kind of and I don't want to say that it's the easy route, but to take what you're doing at Convention Center and just put it in the other space. I mean, I see the value because there are different people coming through the space who may see it, who wouldn't see it down at the Convention Center. But I also think that's kind of like the easy way out, if you will, for the city and what we talk about in terms of transparency, inclusiveness, diversity, not seeing the same artists over and over again on the walls of the different spaces in Salem. And so I guess I'm going out with a bang in my last meeting here, but I really would encourage to put a little more energy and resources behind the programming of the space. And I'm not belittling, please don't take it that way, what you're doing at the Convention Center. I just feel like this is a new space. It's an opportunity to be more cognizant of the changing, and not even changing. I mean, there are people here that don't get any play in terms of art and representation. And I just think it's time for change.
Again, I agree. And I didn't want it to sound like we were taking the easy way out, because that was not what I meant to say. It was, in the space of the library, we would love to ask the artists to expand upon their process, just like the show that is there right now, so that people can see a little bit more in depth of what that artist is doing, that to make them then say, oh, I would like to go see their show that they have now. So it wouldn't be, it could be an extension of their show that's a level 2, but it also could be a little bit more in depth to where they want to show their progress and their process.
I had a comment. Thanks, Rachel. That was awesome. You said a lot of the things. We're going to miss you back here. Yeah, no, I just made me think, like, the opportunity to make the shows more diverse, or create opportunity, or showcase new artists or underrepresented artists is a really great point. I like to think too, it's like, if you took the 100% of wall space and devoted even 2/3 of it to someone like you were talking about, Kristen Coons, that I like the idea of it not being so all in. It's like, it'd be so great to just say, to create the opportunity and to give people that chance. It's like you're sitting next to a more mature artist. It's got a lot of accolades, and so it's just so cool to think that you could tap on some people in the community and be able to let them show a few pieces alongside someone who's more mature in their career. To Rachel's point, with COVID, it just set a lot of things back in so many ways. But even watching what Salem Art Association's doing, they've dedicated a lot of time to creating more opportunity for a lot of things that just hadn't been happening or started to happen before COVID. So I think it's just cool to think, and even the segue into the library would be to pace it and program it a little bit more zig and zag. I would just say, like, the expected would be, these higher caliber artists, and then to kind of make the programming have more highs and lows, not in terms of the artist's work, but in terms of creating more opportunity and presenting some more mature artists, and the pacing of that to be, I think it would be more interesting. It's like, who is this versus like, oh man, this person's obviously got it going on. So enough said, but thanks, Mary Lou, for sharing that. And it's super exciting to think that the new library space is already kind of got a lot of eyes on that opportunity. Because I know before the work that Hacker did to improve the space, there was already like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have a couple walls dedicated to local artists in the community? So
can I just say, I want to just say a couple more things, is that I have a list of some things as we were discussing. At the library, we were thinking of, the featured artist, her processes or his processes, additional works, mentors of maybe the featured artists, emerging artists, guest curators, Willamette University students and professors, Shemeketa students and instructors, Shamawa students and teachers, Confederate tribes of the Grand Round community. We had a lot of that diverse conversation. So just so you know that we weren't just thinking of an artist. And that's all in discussion. But Kate, what do you have to say?
Well, we're not in a position, either the library or the foundation, where we can put a lot of energy into managing and curating those shows. And so we're looking to an outside group and to help with those, so that now we've got the space, but we don't have the professional expertise to hang and curate and manage those shows. And so that's, to me, why this is such a win-win situation, is that the Artist Series Foundation has that expertise. And as you develop a system that, you know, everyone's comfortable with in terms of inclusion, it's really helpful for us to just be able to provide the space, and for you all to be able to provide the art. And so we really, this is from the very beginning of the idea of having an art gallery space in the library. There have been strong messages from the library that they do not have the staff to manage it. So they're willing to provide the space. And so we're hoping that the art community can provide the things to put in the space.
I think I'd like to wrap up the conversation on this topic. Really good comments. You know, we all need to do a better job in Salem of connecting our various programs and work. And Amador's presence at our meeting, it just pointed that out to me. So, you know, we don't have a local arts agency here, and this is the kind of conversation that, you know, an entity like that could help facilitate. But I do think that the library has made the space available. It is well designed, well lit. We have an opportunity to launch a new program, and without investment by SPAC. And I think we should start. And I'm hearing from Mary Lou and Kate that they're listening to what people are saying. So I think that this project will evolve over time, but I'm grateful that when the Amanda Wojcik show comes down and the Salem Reads show goes up, and that show comes down, that the space will be programmed, and there'll be some regularity, some predictability, and in a space that is used by a very diverse group of users. So any final comments from anyone before we move on to our next agenda item? Kelly.
I'd like to say something. You know, I appreciate everything Rachel and Michael has said, and I not to beat the same, you know, stick, or the same drum, but, you know, it's a public space. At some point, you know, people are going to be asking, how do they get access to that space? And so we just have to make sure that, you know, it's open to, you know, a broad section of the community, you know, and if that's just, you know, it's going to become obvious at some point, people are going to want access, and they're going to want to know how they get that access.
Yeah.
Sure.
I could add one thing about that, is that you may remember the community wall that we had. It was near the stairs that went up to the second level. And we have had a change of administration here, and so I can look into that. But the plan had been that community space, which people could sign up for, they just needed, I don't even know if there was an approval process for it. It was something that was something the city managed. And my understanding, at least with the last administration, was that they were going to have that space available again, in addition to the art hall. And so that, what I'll do is speak with Kim Carroll, who is the interim director now, and see what her plans are for the future. And that may help in terms of the art that goes into the art hall. If there's an additional place where at least 12 artists a year can present their work, that it'll balance the community aspect that you're looking for.
That's
So
great.
I'll get back to
Yeah.
Chris on that.
I would say, though, also, Mary Lou, if there's a way to have either a website or somewhere that people can go to understand how the selections are made, and if they can submit a proposal for an exhibition, or come to, you know, if you're going to have an open call, so that you can review a wider swath of artists for consideration in that space, because I think it is important to have some transparency there, and to also, recognize that OASF, while you are all active in the arts community and engaged in the arts in Salem, there are artists that may not be on your radar. So
Right.
I would just encourage that.
I totally agree. And we do have we have a really good website that we can add to.
I'm going to close the discussion on this. I think there are a lot of good comments. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the space. We all want this to be a good thing for Salem, but we need to move on because our guests for the next agenda item have been on our call for a while. So I am going to move us into the exciting Public Works Operations Building project. Good morning, Alan and Jen. And we have Michael and Paula serving as SPAC members on that selection committee. I have been able to see 2 versions of an RFQ for artists' interest in 2 sites at that project. And I'm going to turn it, who's going to take the lead on this? Alan and
Yep.
Jen?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Our intent here today really is just to give you all an update of where we are with the process and where we're headed. I think we're looking for kind of a head nod from the group on the strategy that we're taking for this particular project. And as Chris, as you mentioned, we've had a couple of meetings now with our selection group to kind of get to this point. And as you mentioned, that's Michael and Paula from the commission. Jen, who is from Hacker Architects on the design team, and Mark Bechtel, who's our operations manager, and Heather's been ably assisting us as well. Just a quick note of background, just in case anybody's not familiar with the project, or maybe as a reminder. The Public Works Department is building about a 50,000 square foot new administrative building at our shops complex. And it's going to serve a number of functions. One, it replaces really old and outdated current quarters for most of our admin and technical personnel that work out at the shops in our operations division, and gives them a new modern space to work out of, and should make their daily working lives much more efficient. Secondly, it allows us to move the engineering division from downtown into that building as well, which gives us a great opportunity for increased collaboration between our 2 divisions. We work together all the time, so being in the same building is a really great opportunity that we're excited about. This building will be built to an immediate occupancy seismic standard, so it'll serve as a hub for emergency operations for the Public Works Department. Huh. And then finally, it allows us to provide a much enhanced public access point for folks to come and do business with the Public Works Department, whether that's signing up for a parks reservation, a question about their bill, signing up for rec programs, those kind of things. And so we're really excited about this project because it meets so many needs for the department, that issues we've been working around for a long time. Quick timeline update. We are working on the final construction documents right now. And when I say we, I mean the team. I'm not doing any drawing myself these days. And those should be wrapped up around the first of the year. In the meantime, we have gotten to the point where we're just about ready to start construction on some of the site work. So things will start moving around out there actually in the next few weeks. As far as the public art piece of this goes, we have a budget of about 140,000, and we've identified 2 locations, and I think we've shared that here before, but just as a reminder, one exterior entrance plaza where the public will be coming into the building, and one interior in the lobby area, kind of adjacent to the lobby and adjacent to a large public meeting room that will be available not only for city meetings, but also for external use like neighborhood associations or other types public meetings. So kind of two possibilities there, two very different possibilities. And so the way we've structured the RFP is to try to maximize flexibility at this early stage and really open ourselves to as many possibilities as we can. And so we've structured this a little bit differently than past opportunities, like for the police or the library. We're really looking for just one piece and tried to set it up so that we can get proposals for either interior or exterior and select up to 10 finalists. So we've got a two-phase process here where folks submit their qualifications and kind of a statement of intent and examples of their past work. And then we can select up to 10 of those, kind of thinking 5 for the interior and 5 for the exterior. But we'll see how it looks, and we may want to juggle that ratio just depending on the strength of the submittals. And then those up to 10 would get a small stipend to develop their concept and come back and present it and interview with us. And tried to set up the RFP so that if we see 2 proposals, one for each that we really think fits, we have the flexibility to do that instead of just selecting one piece. By the same token, if there's something that just really fits for one or the other, and we don't see something that really makes sense for the second space, we could preserve that budget for maybe finding existing art that's already been produced that really fits the space. So I've tried to write it as flexibly as possible. That's been a little bit of a challenge. I think we're close. We'll want to run it through our purchasing department to make sure they feel like the document is clear. And we've also tried to leave ourselves the ability with a little bit of contingency in the budget so that as we evaluate the opportunities for both locations, we can stretch the budget to one side or the other, just to make sure that we kind of get the best fit that we can find, or by the same token, have that contingency left to supplement this work with existing work after the fact. So I wanted to kind of stop there and just allow the opportunity for any questions and just make sure that tact kind of sounds right to the group.
I'm wondering, Alan, since we have a couple of people on the call who may be new SPAC members after the first of the year, could you or Jen share the rendering of the building quickly, or am I putting you on the spot?
Jen, are you prepared to do that?
It's going to be a great addition to that part of Salem. I think it's a very elegant structure, and I think people would be interested in seeing it. If you could share it easily, great. If not, I'm sure we can do it later.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up now. Give me 1 second.
Okay, great. To me, while we're waiting, I think that the process makes sense. I wanted to just clarify that because this project is not bonded, that if all of the art allocation is not spent on at this site, that the surplus could be used at a different site in Salem. Am I correct about that?
That is correct. I've had some discussions with the director, and his goal would be that we try to maximize the budget for this site.
I'm sure.
and make the most of this opportunity. But I think it kind of comes down back to that question of fit. And if we find, what fits for this project, I think it's a pretty healthy budget for the spaces that we have identified.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something left over when we're done, you're right. We don't have the limitation of the bond,
Sure.
where it's got to be spent, particularly for this project.
Well, I think it would be great if both of the sites that you've identified at the building could be supported through this RFQ process. Are you still pulling it up, Jen?
I got it here. Let me just pull it up. There's share screen. There we go. There's an exterior view there of the main entry off of 23rd. Oops, sorry about that, y'all. Of the main entry off of 23rd Avenue. And so the building is on the current shops campus on the east end, kind of closer to the airport. And so this is that entry off of 23rd Avenue, and the middle, kind of that middle gable there is the main entry into the public facing lobby.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet.
Comments from SPAC members or questions for Alan or Jen? And maybe can you just run through the timeline? It's pretty condensed. So
Yep, I'd be glad to. Our intent is to get the document published and out for folks to start reviewing in the next week or so. That'll depend a little bit on getting it to our admin folks and the other work that they've got going, but in the next week or so. And leaving it open through the holidays and actually giving plenty of time to respond. So we wouldn't actually have the qualifications due until January 28th. So we just want to make sure folks don't get squeezed by the holiday time period, as we all seem to do. Then from there, we would try to select finalists from those proposals, giving ourselves about 2 weeks, so February 11th. And then trying to give the artists about 6 weeks to develop their concepts. So we'd see those due on the end of March 28th, and try to hold our interviews right around that time and make a selection within the following week or so after that.
great. Michael, do you want to add anything since you're on the selection committee?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Alan did a good job. Thanks, just kind of catching everybody up. I think the idea of the 140K, I would agree, it would be great. I mean, it's not that much money. I mean, if you thought of the exterior sculpture, the scale, just in this example of the total budget, if you felt like, well, with 10 more K or something, maybe in scale of the building, they presented. So we're putting some weight, obviously, around the presentations so that we can reserve more conversation to come back to other SPAC members, Hacker, et cetera, to say what's best. So, you know, that 40K that we're kind of putting on the side is meant to say it's not part of the program, but even the idea of, you know, what it's going to feel and look like once we see what's presented in the finalists, then we can really put all our heads together to make the right choices and decisions to best accommodate both interior and exterior. The idea of, you know, putting an RFP out to solicit artists' work, but then also, you know, someone had a great idea toward the end of the timeline to say, you know, hey, there's much like we worked with the convention center to say, you know, here's some artists' names generated by SPAC and others that would say, here's a couple paintings, or, you know, could be more of a challenge under the timeline, but, you know, to say that the construction of the building goes on for a while. So fitting something more custom with just the finishings, color, materials, finishings of the interior space, for example, could come later if we said, hey, we have some budget left over for a piece that's really commands your attention and really fits right with the overall design of the building and space. So I know that's a little long-winded, but I do like the idea of taking the 100K as a starting point and then be more informed as we go as to what the right decisions are.
Great. Any other comments from folks? Any questions for Alan or Jen or anyone else? All right, I think with that, we may.
Actually, can I jump in quickly? I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no problem.
Just quickly, as we're looking to get this out, posted, hopefully next week. I know that during our last meeting, we talked about, you know, different ideas of how we can share this a bit more widely. So just another request. I know we mentioned the tribes. I think it's a great idea if we submit to all three regional tribes, and I'm working to get contact information from Kimberly for those folks. And I think there was some other ideas that I wrote down, but if you have ideas specifically of other groups that we could share this RFPQ with, that would be wonderful. And I don't know, Alan, if that has to come from purchasing necessarily, or if that we can help distribute the documentation ourselves, but we can work with purchasing on that. I think if we have more folks to share with, that would be great. Yeah,
thanks for bringing that up, Heather. I was going to mention that too. We've gotten really great response, I think, on the last two of these, but we had some of this discussion at our meetings too, is how do we get this notice out to as broad of a reach as possible and try to hit some areas or some communities that we don't necessarily always get. So I think the tribes is a great idea. And if folks have other places where we can spread the word, I think it's pretty easy for us to work with purchasing to share links so that folks can access the official documents.
Great. I think is the cultural resources person at Grand Ronde, David Harrelson, Michael? Do I have that name right? I think that's the contact. He would be someone to get this. Native Arts and Cultures Foundation in Portland would be another. Bud Lane at Silet's. I can make some suggestions.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay, any other comments on the Public Works Operations Center before we move on? Okay, thanks, Alan and Jen, for being with us this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Let's move to the 50-year celebration of the Civic Center development. Any new things to share?
Thank you, Chris. I had reached out to City Manager's office with the notes from our second public meeting, whereby we walked across campus and had a number of great ideas for performances, potential placement for art, and some groups, local groups, Peace Plaza, Multicultural Institute. I think the Bush House were expressed most recently. So I shared that information with City Manager's office. And I did ask about a committee, whether or not there really was a committee formed just yet. Courtney from the City Manager's office was indeed hoping to join us this morning, and she got pulled into another meeting. So she has agreed to join us next month. So in January, she'll give an update. They've not quite yet gotten to the point of having a committee. I think staff have convened a couple times to kind of just brainstorm ideas. And so realizing that this is coming fast, I think they plan to do that shortly. So let me just check at my notes. I did get some notes from the City Manager's office. So they are looking at a number of different ideas, including ways to celebrate the brutalism of the style of the Civic Center, including with hopefully engagement from the AIA, American Institute of Architects. They're looking at the Willamette Valley Genealogical Society, potentially as some sources of stories, people that were involved or know of folks that were involved with the initiation. They're looking at some interpretive information from that first Mayor's Art Invitational that we've discussed briefly at these meetings. Tribal partners as well. They are looking to produce some kind of interpretive panels for all of this information. And then they are reaching out or planning to reach out to the Peace Plaza group to work with them on ideas to help kind of spruce up the Peace Plaza. I think we noted that there's plenty of sprucing up that could be done out there. So they are looking, and they were interested in these other groups that were raised from SPAC. So I hope to get an update. Courtney plans to join us next month. So they're kind of just gearing up for this. It will be here quick. But that's where we stand.
Well, there are some good ideas there. I look forward to hearing people's reaction to the brutalist style of the building design 50 years later.
I'll add too quickly. So I know this group had expressed an interest. I'm sorry, I keep jumping in. I forgot to mention again that the sculpture out there, the fountain, I know this group is interested if there is funding that's dedicated for artwork and trying to find out if we can fix that. No estimate has still been received, but we're waiting. Hoping to hear more, and if possible, that might become some kind of legislative ask. People realize the importance of that, so still staying tuned on that front.
thinking about the James Hansen sculpture and the fact that the Peace Plaza has now been cleaned up and there is new exterior planting on the outside of the library, or it will grow up. That plaza could be an interesting place to set a new dance piece that might involve some community involvement. You know, I'm thinking about the Halprin choreography around the Halprin fountain in Portland. Anyway, I'll go back and I'll get some of the documentation of that process, but it was pretty cool. My former office funded it, and lots of people came out. There was a performance piece that moved through the Halprin sequence of outdoor fountains in Southwest Portland. But I do think, given all of the conversation that we've had this morning, advocating for as diverse and as inclusive programming as there can be would be important. And just, it's a great opportunity. This thing will be celebrated in the summer. You know, weather's usually good, days are long. You could have a lot of fun on that big block. So I hope that SPAC will be, you know, considered a resource for as some of these ideas move forward. I guess there's no action for us to take on this. This is just an update.
Mhm.
All right. Moving on to guidance of youth. I happened to take a walk in Bush Park and I went over to see guidance of youth. There's still some residue of that tagging on it. And I guess the real reason I wanted to put this on the agenda was that I think I mentioned this before, but when the cultural landscape work, you know, study was done on Bush Park, and that's a fairly complicated process that looks at the assets of a park, both the natural and the hardscape and the history. There was a conversation between parks, Salem Parks, and the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, who suggested that as new additions were proposed for the park, that an element be introduced near the guidance of youth. For folks who don't know it, it's a massive kind of monumental realist sculpture of a pioneer family, very white. And the tribe suggested that something new be introduced that clearly communicated that Indigenous peoples lived in and around the Bush Park area for centuries before white settlement occurred. And that's why I keep asking the question of if there's anything left over at the Public Works project, could that be invested in something that would be in and around guidance of youth? I don't have a recommendation. I don't think we've had a conservator go out and look at, there's some other sort of goop that got dripped on the sculpture that a neighborhood association person mentioned to us, but I wanted to just keep this on the agenda so we don't lose track of that request from the tribe that we consider something at that site, which I think is very, very appropriate. So, yeah, Kelly.
Muted.
You're muted.
I think it's really important that we keep this on our list here too. But I think that to consider taking the funds from the Public Works thing, this is its own project, I think, and we need to figure out how we can get it funded.
Yes, I agree. No disagreement. I'm suggesting that if you've got a great proposal that allows you to spend $100,000 and there's some other money available, here's an idea that, you know, where that investment could be made. I'm not suggesting that it doesn't deserve much greater investment. I did reach out to the folks at Converge 45 in Portland, which just did an open call for alternative monuments. And it was really in response to a number of the major monuments in Portland that were toppled or removed over the last year and a half. And there were several proposals from Grand Ronde that were in this exhibition. And I don't have visuals of them, but I'm sure we could get them. So I think that this is just a bigger conversation about public art in Salem. Kind of goes back to some of Rachel's earlier comments about, our work should be very reflective of the diverse city that we are all a part of. So, and I look forward to inviting David Harrelson from the tribe to attend one of our meetings and just talk about, what they are thinking about and the work that he's leading and what have you.
Hey, Chris, just to add to that too, that someone, I don't know who it was, in a previous SPAC meeting talked about interpretive signage to accompany the guidance of youth. I thought that was like the low-hanging fruit, the obvious short to midterm opportunity to not wait for a piece of art necessarily, but to potentially create a placard or interpretive signage adjacent to that sculpture. I mean, again, it's not meant to be the total answer, but it could shed some really great light on the whole situation that we've been trying to address. And again, it's to suggest to not just keep waiting and waiting. I don't know what sort of budget, but in my mind, it could be relatively small and pretty tidy to be able to, again, like Kelly said, to keep it on the agenda, but also have some more clear deliverables. Or, again, it's like if we say we'd like to talk to David Harrelson, et cetera, those are all great things. I just think that in lieu of more of an immediate response, both to address the vandalism to that piece, but also to just say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could add something to kind of shed some light and tell the story. So anyway.
I think that's a very good point. I maybe we should invite Patricia from Parks to our meeting in January.
Yeah. She's
been great to work with on other fronts. So
that's great, because it makes you wonder like what the budget would be. Again, this is my comments not meant to minimize the opportunity of interpretive signage. It's just there's history with the city of Salem to say, hey, there's other pieces that we've produced, and there's history in terms of purchasing, what the budgets were, what it looked like, so you could actually put a number against scale of a piece. I don't know if any other SPAC commissioners have any comment on it, but again, it seems to be one item or something that we could act on, at least that we could put some meat on the bones in terms of what a budget would look like, and then obviously what it needs to say, et cetera, look like, location, materials, et cetera. But
well, it seems like that type of a installation would be a park's responsibility. I mean, it sounded like Parks was listening carefully to what the tribe was saying. I mean, this thing, it's in a published report. And I would think that the park staff would basically be putting together the strategies to address the recommendations in that cultural landscape report. And this is one of them. So yeah, it seems like that would be a good next step for sure.
Just one couple quick thoughts. First off, is it David Lewis that you're meaning?
No, there's a new person at the tribe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondered about that. But regarding interpretation and the sculpture there, I know David Lewis was involved in the recent exhibition at Bush Barn, and perhaps there's an opportunity there with the Salem Art Association to do some sort of exhibition, or I don't even know if it would be that, a program or something that explores the history of the sculpture that's basically in their backyard and how it came to be, sort of the current controversy surrounding it, and within the context of this larger conversation about public monuments and memorials. So, and they now have established a relationship with a tribe. I know that's something that they've been working on for a while. So in any case, it just seems like there's maybe an opportunity to contextualize this piece and create some conversation and public engagement around it, which could then lead to, you know, a final outcome in terms of, is it interpretive material that's added to the site? Is it another kind of, you know, revisioning of the area of Bush Park that we're talking about as it relates to the cultural landscape report and so forth. So I don't know where SPAC's role falls within this but I feel like Salem Art Association could be involved in this conversation as well, since they're an art organization that's located in the park itself.
I'd like to make a comment, or actually have some questions. You know, I think even what Rachel was just saying, is this within our jurisdiction? I mean, as the Public Art Commission, it seems like we should be proactive in this type of issue, and that we need to like approach the city council and say, look, we have issues with this piece of art, and that we think there should be another piece of art, and, you know, do we need to make a proposal? What, you know, how do we move this on and be proactive about this instead of just kind of like, well, let's just kind of wait. You know, I think it's an issue that that people are going to want to have addressed. So, you know, I'm just kind of curious as to where, you know, what our actual role is, and is this anything that's in our jurisdiction?
Well, I think it's definitely in SPAC's jurisdiction. We probably, working in concert with Salem Parks, would be the lead. I think that I have never been able to find out how this sculpture came to be sited in the particular area of Bush Park where it is currently located. So, and I never saw this piece. I've lived in Salem for over 25 years. I never saw it before last year. So it's a little mysterious to me, because it's up near LaFell Street. Anyway, I think Salem Art Association could definitely be part of a conversation. David Lewis definitely is a resource for sure. I don't think he is working for the tribe currently. I think his old job is now filled with another guy.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I think at first it was suggested that we accession this sculpture, which is owned by the city, into the public art collection. Others in the community commented that there should be a larger discussion about the work and the fact that it's the kind of monument that does not tell a complete story about the history of where we live. And that's how we got it on the agenda for SPAC. So I do think, you know, we should get all the facts straight and, you know, put together a timeline. This piece was a fallback when the city of Salem rejected another piece. So there's an interesting backstory. But I do think we should just, and let me also just say, there were many, many, many stakeholders involved in the cultural landscape project. So there are a lot of stakeholders around parks, history, the Bush legacy, et cetera. And a lot of that, should come into play in whatever the next steps are. But I do think this is definitely something that SPAC should be, a lead in collaboratively with parks.
Rachel has her hand up.
I didn't, oh, whoops, I don't mean to. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Okay, Kelly.
I'm with you. Didn't really realize this sculpture was there until about a year ago, but lately I've been accessing that part of the park quite a bit. And then also just down the hill from it, there's this placard that talks about the Bush family and how they basically controlled the land. And going back to what Michael was saying, there's nowhere in the park or hardly in any of our public parks to make any mention to the native people that lived here before white people. And so there's that opportunity with at least some interpretive signage. But it seems to me that we should take a lead and get this going. And my thought is, although it's not my favorite piece of art, I think, as you said, it doesn't tell the whole story, that we should maybe approach the council and say, look, this does not tell the whole story. We need another piece of art that will help do that. That's just my thoughts. But, like I say, I think it's that we need to be proactive and make this move.
Hey, while I'm thinking about it, I know pre-COVID when Sandra
Burnett.
her agenda, she might have brought it to SPAC, but remember she was talking about proposal for a sculpture garden in Bush Park. I don't know if that report was done after, because I know there was cited many issues around the trees. There's a lot of concern from parks perspective around the amount of people associated with the art fair, around people walking around the root surfaces of the trees. So there's a lot of sensitivity that goes, but just citing that Sandra had a big vision to bring more presence and art to the park. I thought it was a great idea. It was very ambitious, but this seems to fall in lines with, there's a lot of moving parts here in terms of what's right for the environmental reasons, what's right for the cultural reasons. So it's a great subject. It would seem like the SAA, even any of the nonprofits associated, Susan is on the call. She's with what's it called? The other, not Bush House, but
The studios?
No, artists at the mill.
no, the other,
Salem Art Group?
the other historical.
Deepwood.
Oh, Lord and Scriver.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, or in Deepwood and that whole. So there's a lot of players within the Bush Park vicinity. It seems like the historical part of it would be great, especially if, it seems like there's many issues. It seems in my mind that everyone has visibility to kind of what the right thing to do is. So once again, it's about collaborating, and no one group owns the responsibility. I think it's a collective.
I did read this lengthy cultural landscape report and flagged mentions of art. The idea of a sculpture park is not referenced in the cultural landscape report. So that idea may have gone with Sandra, but usage, it's a beloved park. There are a ton of stakeholders. And I think that the report both looks forward and looks back. I mean, there's history, there is historic plant material. There is another nonprofit, the Mission Street Conservancy, that has taken on, that also has ideas, possibly designating the park as an arboretum. So this is a thing that a lot of people care about. We've got a slice of it, and I think I think SPAC should be proactive at cultivating our relationships with these other entities so that the public art thread and, vision for future public art efforts is at the table for any conversation.
So
Any final comments? Because obviously there's going to be turnover on SPAC, but did you have a new comment, Rachel?
yeah, just a quick question. Can SPAC simply request to convene a meeting between SPAC, parks, SAA? I mean, anyone who's like remotely connected to the park itself to discuss this?
Oh, yeah.
I think my recommendation would be, Patricia Farrell, the parks manager, had shared the information that the tribe had commented on this piece in the cultural landscape plan. I've not heard anything more from her other than that. I think my first step would be to reach back out to her and let her know that that SPAC is indeed interested in moving forward and talking with all of the, as you said, there's a ton of different stakeholders that would want to be involved. So I think my first step would be to reach back out to parks. They might likely request some kind of meeting first, potentially even with, SPRAB, the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They might be one of the first groups that we talk with. In terms of the tribes, I'd also want to make sure that Kimberly's involved. I know that the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde did provide comment, but my understanding is that it's very important that moving forward in all communications with the tribes that we reach out to all of the tribes and that they're all have a seat at the table. And so I'd want to reach out to her and the best approach forward for that. So I think, again, I don't know beyond that. I don't know steps. We have a lot of ideas that were thrown out today, but I would like to reach out to Parks as that first step, and potentially she could join us next month. Potentially we set up a meeting or have somebody from SPRAB join us and get this started.
And for folks who were not around at the time, Patricia was very constructive and involved in the Good Sense sculpture process and installation. So she's a good partner to have, in my estimation. Okay, can we move on to because it's now 11, Echo Earth Globe. There's been a lot of conversation, and earlier this week, Heather and I and Carol Snyder from the Salem Parks Foundation met with Kimberly Fitzgerald, who is the historic preservation leader with the city, to talk about the possibility of submitting a nomination for listing the Echo Earth Globe either on the National Register of Historic Places or getting landmark designation with the city of Salem. I drafted a historic resource something description. It's a prescribed format. And we sent it over to Kimberly, who took it to the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, to talk about the possible submission for National Register listing. It doesn't sound like that makes sense because the original historic resource is the acid ball, which was transformed beyond its original use with the addition of the tiles that created the Echo Earth Globe. However, she described a process of SPAC requesting to the city's Landmarks Commission that they consider listing the Echo Earth Globe as a City of Salem local landmark. And it's about a 60 to 90 day process. The first step, and this is what Heather was adding to the agenda at the start of our meeting, would be getting the go-ahead from all of you today and then drafting a letter, which needs to go in by the end of the month or the first week of January, that would then go to the Landmarks Commission at their meeting on January 20th. After that, with some public hearings. So I would like to, either Heather and I can respond to any questions, but if there is agreement, I would like someone to make a motion that we proceed to submit a letter seeking City of Salem landmark status for the Echo Earth Globe.
Quick question. We're doing this because it'll make it easier for us to get funds to repair it.
Yes, because some funders who are interested in historic preservation issues give priority or prefer to work with projects that have some historic designation, like listing on the National Register. Our project is not old enough and it doesn't work for that. So the next best thing would be to have local landmark designation. I've already written most of the explanation, so that the hard part is done. And now we have to just put it through the channels with the city's landmark commission. And as Kimberly and Heather and Carol Snyder and I discussed this earlier this week, no one thinks this is a bad idea. This would be about just kind of building some public support and making sure that we don't leave a loophole for anybody to say, well, sorry, we can't consider your application because we prefer to work with a landmark. We can say, well, it is a landmark. Any other comments?
Well, I'd like to motion to continue submitting to the City of Salem local landmark. What are you calling that, brief or application process, to proceed on the application process?
Letter of support from SPAC nominating the Eco Earth Globe as a historic resource, a local resource.
Mhm. Is there a second?
I second it.
Discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor of SPAC submitting a letter to the city designating the Echo Earth Ball as a historic resource, say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Kimberly was very, very positive about this, so I'm looking forward. And it puts us in touch with another culturally related board within city government, and I think that's good for this body. Okay, our next item is Wayne Taysom. We also discussed, since we had a meeting with Kimberly Fitzgerald, we discussed the Wayne Taysom doors. It sounds like the design work for the former police space is still a work in progress. I had previously reached out to a colleague in Corvallis who knew Wayne Taysom and knows his living family. I had her reach out to the family for me and she didn't get a response. She said she was surprised, but I have the contact information for Wayne Taysom's daughter, should we want to use that. I also was able to go over to Mission Mill or Willamette Heritage Center, and I looked at the set of case drawings for the Civic Center, a lot of them. And their Taysom door panels are not, they're not included in any drawings, either of the elevation of the council chambers, any door schedules, things like that. But it was interesting because the drawings, they're real drawings, pencil on Mylar, just like old days. Anyway, so that's really where we are on the Taysom doors. No, there's no change. It's good to know that they're not in the set of case drawings. We've closed that loop. Is there any?
Throw out too, so yeah, those doors remain in storage. Our engineering, I've expressed before, is aware that we're interested. One option has been to hopefully reintegrate those pieces into the redesign of the first floor of Civic, or part of the court, which, as I understand, they may be redesigning that on level 2 as well. That has seemed to make sense, but if folks have other ideas, I know SHPO would be interested in getting those doors again out to the public sooner rather than later. I think the designs process is going to start soon, but I don't have other ideas. Council chambers might be an option for displaying at least just the panels, which it sounds like SHPO is receptive to, in lieu of the entire doors. Council Chambers does have a lot of material in it, artwork, historic photos. There's new banners in there. I guess that could be an option, or if anybody here today has other ideas, please let me know. They're kind of just sitting, waiting right now for the redesign. So unless I hear otherwise.
Are those panels two-sided? Those are what were taken out of the door casings?
No, they're still, the doors
They're
are still intact.
Yeah.
So it's one-sided.
It seems like one side has just kind of a ribbing design, and then the actual front face has the
Okay.
scenes, if you will.
So if they were wall mounted, that would be not a great idea to do, to be hiding the ribbed side. I mean, it just makes you wonder. I mean, if someone gave them to me, I'd be like, we can hang these on a wall short term or something so they're visible. But if it's meant to be viewed from both sides, that would be inappropriate.
So Heather, do you think that they're actually one panel that it has two sides, or is there two panels there?
You know, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not 100%. So I can look back. There was a report that our facilities had put together, just kind of, detailing the doors themselves. I can look and see if there's more info there. Otherwise, it's been my assumption. It could be incorrect. But I remember, like, from the photos that you took as well, in and out, there was the ribbing on one side.
Yeah.
Worth double checking.
Yeah, I am. If I was going to design a door with metal panels in it that would transmit cold, I'd put a piece of wood in between them, but I don't know. Also, I could see an artist saying, hey, I'm just going to do the backside too. So, yeah, I don't know.
That's why it would be interesting to find out, like, Wayne Taysom's design process for the work. I'm just curious how it all came to be. Well, I think we're keeping all the right people informed about things. Kimberly will be a key collaborator on this, and then just figuring out what makes sense.
I'll add to my to-do list to see if I can find anything more about whether or not they're one or two-sided. I might not be able to find that out, and I don't know that we would want to, compromise the doors just yet, or if we would. I mean, that's a big question. So, but I'll see if I can find anything on our end.
I think a lot of the people who were involved with the art at the Civic Center when the building was built are gone, but Jerry Frank was part of that process, and it might be worth interviewing him and just finding out what he remembers, because he was involved with so much stuff, but a lot of the other people have passed on.
Chris, do you think the drawings that you saw at the Heritage Center, would they be something that might make a good exhibition for that 50th anniversary of the building?
I didn't see any renderings. I really had construction drawings.
Oh, great.
But there's a lot of stuff. Kimberly did say that they made copies of the drawings for her office, and she has a set, so we could ask her. But when I reviewed an inventory of the Settecase archives, I only had the Willamette Heritage staff pull the drawings that I thought would get me to the doors. So, they were the council chambers, things like that. It would be great to see some renderings from that era, because the style of the drawing was so cool. I saw one. South Salem High School has a really cool rendering of their building that they found in a closet, and now they have it installed in a conference room. It's like perfect mid-century, but I didn't see anything like that at Willamette Heritage. But I know Kimberly did tell us that she has an intern working on pulling all the information about the Civic Center together, and it sounded like the chair of the Landmarks Commission will be drafting a National Register nomination for the Civic Center complex. So there's activity around this. We should ask her, her opinion about that question. Are we ready to, because there's really no action on this, are we ready to move on to the drummer? It sounds like our next step is to have a conservator look at it and assess what structural support needs to be introduced here so that the piece can be displayed again. And it sounds like at the same time someone does that, if a new base is to be created, then the base for the duck or the bird that is associated with the drummer should be looked at as well.
So I had met with Mr. Silas Cook, who was recommended from the Hallie Ford Museum. He met with me last Thursday. It was over at the convention center to look at the piece, and he brought his business partner as well. So I've not yet received an estimate of what he thinks is fully needed and what that would cost. He did say he would get that sent over within a few days. They did look at both pieces, the rooster as well as the larger piece, and it was expressed to him. And they were aware, looking at the piece, how aged it was, that both bases really should be updated and repaired as part of this process. So I expect to hear more on that. So depending on what that might cost, and I really have no idea, we would likely need to get some other bids. Potentially, we can look into insurance coverage, but it's kind of waiting for that first estimate first to determine next steps. It sounds like it's fine where it is. It's in an office, kind of just tucked away right now. And then, as we talked about before, we definitely would need some kind of new loan agreement before we would move forward and determine how long it could stay at the convention center again. So yeah, right now we're just waiting on that initial cost estimate to see where we're at. He did mention, Mr. Cook, that yes, it does need some kind of structural, and it did not have that. It was a small, about 3-inch ring that that figure was sitting on, that was rusted through. It wasn't even a solid piece that was holding that upright all of these years. So it definitely needs greater support than it had previously.
So it sounds like this is also a work in progress. I'm glad that Silas could come down and take a look at it.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think the appraised value of this sculpture is about $17,000.
That's correct.
So we've got, it's something to take care of. All right, let's get to, next item is members, meeting times, and quorum. Rachel and I will, well, first of all, welcome to Susan Napak and Zach Hull, who have submitted their interest forms to the city about serving on SPAC. My term ends at the end of the year, as does Rachel's. Although I will continue to serve if my seat is not filled, at least until it is.
Yeah, I have a couple updates just to add. Thank you for joining, Zachary and Susan. It sounds like you are interested in that, and that's great. That's great to hear. You had got your application in. It was over a month ago, I think, Zachary. And so I did learn yesterday the Boards and Commissions Selection Committee, which meets about quarterly, generally quarterly each year, to review applications. They did meet 2 weeks ago now, and they did make a recommendation that you be assigned to SPAC. So that recommendation still yet needs to go to City Council, and it will go next Monday. So December 13th, that recommendation will go to Council. And then that leaves, Rachel, after your position ends after this meeting, that leaves one more position opening for an individual experienced in arts education, or arts critique. So we have one position as well that's open. I also learned just yesterday, that 2 additional applications have been received. I took a quick look at them, and it looks like they do have arts experience listed. So this will be interesting moving forward. We finally got some applications that were submitted, so that feels good. And then, of course, Chris, thankfully you've decided to stay on for a bit longer until we can replace your position. That would leave one other opening in landscape architecture, real estate development, or community foundations. So that's a quick update where we're at on applications. And then just to share, I know this group had expressed interest in potentially what the process would be to potentially add additional at-large members. And so we can do that. That is a code revision that would need to go to City Council for approval. So we can do that at any point if the commission is interested in moving forward. It was suggested, Chris, you are planning to give your annual report and presentation next Monday as well, December 13th. It was suggested that it probably would be a good idea to give City Council a heads up if we are indeed thinking of making this move, so we can start processing that, and it won't be a surprise if that's brought before them at some point. So that's kind of the recommendation, if we can bring it up, and then if we decide to move forward, it is a code revision through council. The other question that was raised recently is that on the timing of these meetings, 9:30, the second Wednesday of the month. And I did confirm that indeed it is up to this group. We can make changes. We can move to an evening meeting if we were so inclined. We would just need to provide at least a week's notice, before the next meeting, and have that posted so that the public is aware of the change. So just a quick update on those 3 fronts.
Great. I think any action on changing the meeting time should happen when there is a complement of new commissioners to make that, to consider that again. I'm glad that you mentioned that I'm going to give the report to City Council on Monday. I need to talk to you, Heather, about the timing of that agenda.
Sure.
And just so I'm prepared, because I think we're all set. I just need to condense my own talking points down.
Good. The other piece I learned, before I forget again, is quorum. We'd had questions about what constitutes a quorum for this commission, and it is listed that there's 7 members. I did confirm with legal that no matter if we have vacancies or not, we're held to that 7-member commission. So a quorum will always be 4 members for this group, unless we decide to add additional members, and that's approved.
All right. Is there other business to come before us?
Could I speak real quick about the why?
Yes. Sorry, I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Perfect.
Just want to, let me share my screen. Let's see here. So just to get it in your minds, most of you probably know where the Y is. So this is the site, and we're looking at in the alley right here, doing a large mural on the Y. And I can show you kind of the size. It'll be pretty significant, depending on what proposals or what the artists come up with in hopefully the near future. There were a couple ideas where it's these 4 panels of concrete, pretty much the entire surface except for these 4 walls could be painted on. So it's a pretty significant canvas for some art to be placed on. 39 feet, and then each panel, it looks like, is 17.5, and then 2 20s and 15 feet wide. Or it could be the entire thing. And the Y is interested in obviously having a piece of art or multiple pieces of art. Maybe each panel has its own design that reflects their mission statement and the cultural, include our cultural identity in Salem. So they're curious to know kind of the process. If anyone has any ideas, Chris met with us about a week ago or 2 weeks ago to discuss some ideas, but just wanted to bring it in front of the rest of you, see if there's any other great places to get this moving along.
It was, thank you for including me in that meeting.
Yeah.
I had not met Tim Sinatra, the CEO of the Y, before. And then we were with two other architects from CB2. There are some very exciting development plans in that part of Salem. The Y is going to develop some affordable housing on a surface parking lot across the street. There is a deal underway for the Statesman building, but that area of Salem will really be activated with these new developments. The wall in question is large. It does face the alley, but there's expected to be a lot more foot traffic over there. And the other architects were familiar with the work of the Portland Street Art Alliance. They knew the work of Blaine Fontana from some other work that he did in the Dalles. And it was a very positive conversation. I think that this project is grant fundable. You know, it's through an Oregon Arts Commission type of project or Oregon Community Foundation, you know, possibly some local corporate sponsorship. Remind me, Spencer, when construction is expected to be completed on the Y?
It sounds like end of May, June area. And they're hoping to maybe get, if it is a 4-piece or if it at least get something started this summer. Mm-hmm. So it would be a quick timeline to get this moving along. But I mean, it'd be great to have another piece of public art.
Right.
So close to the Capitol.
Yeah. I note that Tim was going to take this, the idea to his board. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard more about that, but I think Heather sent the link to the mural application to the group.
I don't know if I've sent that onto the Y yet. I can do that.
Oh, okay. Okay. And
I had a question, maybe, I don't know if it can be answered, but so it goes through the process through SPAC, and then, so what role does YMCA, because I'm thinking not of Salem YMCA, I'm thinking of the
corporate
YMCA with all their brand, you know, just like what's their role in the approval process? Because I've worked a little bit with the YMCA and they're very strict on all their branding guidelines and everything has to go through, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm just saying knowing content or what, so if it's to echo their values, both values of the YMCA corporate brand values as well as other values, how it's judged and graded for the approval process through their corporate as well as SPAC. I don't know if anyone else has something to add to that. I'm just kind of rambling, but
I'll check in with Tim on that. I know because we've had to deal with some of the signage on the building that specifically, like if you're using the Y itself, there is specific branding for it. And so there are very strict standards based on certain items. I don't know necessarily about like if there's a mural on a portion of the building, and obviously they would have to review to comply with their standards, but I don't.
Yeah, it makes me, sorry to interrupt, but it makes me wonder if there's some examples from YMCA corporate of other public mural art on any other buildings nationally to kind of know. I don't know if it's would be included in any RFP or RFQ process, but if I were an artist working with an organization like YMCA, it'd be great to kind of know the things that they have existing. I mean, that'd be cool just to see if they have other murals, any other cities, the kinds of work that they've they liked, approved.
Okay, that makes sense.
Not to make busy work, but again, if it were a big corporation nationally with all these multiple locations by city, it'd be great to know what this would be sitting. It's calling in a library of public art toward their organization.
Yeah, good question. That did not come up in when we had the conversation. But I hadn't thought of that. So this is also a work in progress. It sounds like probably figuring out kind of a project plan for this would need to happen, especially in terms of figuring out how much money would be needed. You know, the last two murals that the city funded were 25 each. One was considerably larger in terms of square footage than the other. So I don't know. I was excited. I'm excited for this kind of a development downtown because I think downtown could use the boost.
Definitely after
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, you know, the why, I think it would just be really terrific to have something bold and colorful in that alley, especially if it was a series of 4 different artists, you know, reflecting some diversity of, you know, that we have here across the city. Okay, we are at 11:30. Any comments for the good of the order before we thank Rachel for her great work on SPAC?
Thank you, Rachel, for your great work on SPAC.
Okay, I was going to say, maybe I'll preempt that by saying I've enjoyed my time on the commission and have appreciated the opportunity to be involved with public art in Salem and make a contribution to that. I look forward to seeing what other people will do in the future and how these projects will unfold. So I may pop up as a guest from time to time or just observer if we have that opportunity. But in any case, like I said, I really appreciated the opportunity to serve on the commission, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, and thank you, Susan, for joining us to learn more about the work of the Salem Public Art Commission.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris.
You're
I
welcome.
will be submitting my application
Perfect.
thoroughly.
Perfect.
Hey, Zachary or Zach, what do you prefer?
You can call me Zach. Yeah.
Zach, can you give us a 30-second rundown on your background a little bit, or a minute, or however long you want?
How about one minute?
You can time me. We'll see how I do. I grew up in Salem on Court Street, where I live again. My father taught art history at Willamette University for 40 years. My mother is an artist working in Salem. And I went to high school here. I went to college in Portland at Reed College, went to law school in Eugene, have had a variety of jobs. I'm a policy advisor for FEMA right now. And I'm also, I own an art business in Portland called X Gallery. We've done some work with the city of Salem. We were working in the Virgin Islands. I have 2 small children, aged 8 and 3. We were living in the Virgin Islands for a few years, doing hurricane disaster recovery work, and we moved back to the Northwest when COVID struck. We were able to work remotely, as many of us have during the pandemic, and we decided to move back to Salem to help my family. So we had actually purchased the house next door to my parents, And so I am actually working right now, broadcasting to you from my my childhood bedroom, which is now my office. So when people think about how far they have come in life, about 10 feet is my answer. Yep, so I'm very pleased to be back in Salem and to be sort of re-engaging with space and place and memory in the strange ways that happens when you've been gone for a long period of time. But I'm excited to participate in the committee. So, and getting to know you all and the stakeholders and landscape of the Salem art world. So that's probably more than a minute, but there you go.
That was good. That was good. And welcome. I'm so glad that I'm so glad you'll be part of SPAC. Any final comments? I full disclosure, I have an appointment at the DMV that I need to get to. Anything else for the good of the order?
I just want to say goodbye to Rachel. Thanks so much. It's been great working with you.
Hi,
Thank
Kelly. It was nice to work with you too, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, don't forget to tune in Monday to hear my report via Zoom. And I will say my neighborhood association will have as a guest tonight, Matthew Boulay from Salem Art Association and another staff person there to talk about the 2022 art fair. So looking forward to hearing what is going on at the SCAN meeting. All right, are we ready to adjourn? All right, then I will adjourn the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission. It is 11:35 a.m.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Michael.
Hi, Rachel.
Bye.
Rachel.